right, so for this next one, you're going to be doing a draft proofreading. Now, proofreading is one of the most important skills that you will have moving into the business world, because when we send out emails, memos, letters, Facebook messages, you name it, right? Any kind of written communication, when we send that out, if we don't proofread it, oftentimes there can be spelling, grammar issues, and those just make us look incompetent. There can also be phrasing issues, which could be misunderstood. There could be issues in the way that someone comprehends or understands the material, and that means that you're not getting your point across, or you're not getting your message across. And in the business world, it's very important that what you say is exactly what you mean, so that everyone can understand it in a very clear and concise way. Oftentimes, especially in high school and college, I've seen where people like to add in a lot of fluff. And that fluff is, one, not necessary, and two, it only leads to confusion, right? So we want to make sure that we're learning how to write in a very clear and concise way. When you're in high school, a lot of times you're trying to get to that 3-page, 5-page maximum or minimum. And so you're adding all this fluff just to make the paper longer. Well, in the business world, we want to do the exact opposite. We want to take as much as we can and put it into very concise word choices that are going to be minimal. And so when you're proofreading, you're going to proofread at least 2 other groups' papers, and you want to be looking for all of the things on this list. Okay. So, obviously we have what you would normally look for: your heading, email heading, make sure it reads right. You want to make sure that the font's right, single spaced, after spacing. Remember, should be 8-point after spacing. You want to make sure that the tables are properly labeled. You want to make sure that the reference page is APA, that it's alphabetical order, that there's a hanging indent. Make sure the in-text citations are correct, right? So there's all these different things. If you're including an appendix, is the purpose of that appendix clear? Do you understand why it's there? What did it refer to? And was the appendix referred to in the paper, right? It has to have, there has to be a connection there. Then, of course, you're going to look at the grammar, right? The commas, semicolons, colons, periods, run-on sentences, comma splicing, fragmented sentences. This is all stuff that we went over in chapters 1 through 5. We want to check spelling, right? These are the things that you guys normally check for. However, you also need to look through and check all of these other aspects, all right? And I expect to see in your proofreading that you've included many of these, because I've seen everybody's writing, and I know that there's going to be need for proofreading in these areas. And so it's your job to help make sure that you're looking for these. So in chapters 1 through 5, go ahead and open up your textbook, and you can have that as a reference while you're doing your proofreadings. But you want to look for those trite phrases. You want to look for excessive exuberance. You want to check for wordiness and unclarity. And those are really common, okay? Redundancies, right? I say something and then I say it again. When I teach, I'm very redundant because some people understand it different. But when I write, I have to get rid of that redundancy. Flabby, right? This is where you start getting a lot of that fluff, and you want to make sure that we're minimizing that. We also want to make sure that we are checking the organization. So you're looking for those sections that we have in our outline. Make sure it has a good introduction. Make sure that you understand what the problem is. Make sure that the 3 different alternatives are all listed there. You want to make sure that the measurable criteria are there and that you understand what they are. If you don't understand what the measurable criteria are, how are they going to be useful, right? Look at that discussion and see if you can understand the similarities and differences between the different alternatives. Make sure that there is a clear analysis, that you can see why you might choose one over the other in each of the 4 measurable criteria. Was there some kind of visual that you were able to more clearly understand the data, or very quickly and visually understand the data? And in the conclusions and recommendations, was there a recommendation given, and were the reasons that recommendation, did they make sense? So those are all things that you're looking for. In addition to all of that, you're going to also add a final thought. Okay, you can either add it to the end of the paper, or you can add it in as a separate page. But this needs to be your final thoughts. Okay, and you have to answer this question to get full points for your proofreading for each of the papers. Given the data provided and the recommendations by the team, would you agree with the recommendation? Why or why not? So you need to make sure that you're including that. All right, so hopefully this is pretty clear and understandable how to complete your proofreading. Please watch the other video that talks about how to use track changes and commenting. That way you can see how to actually add that proofreading into the paper, and then you'll upload that back into the discussion board. Okay. All right, guys, if you have any questions, as always, just let me know and I'm more than happy to answer them.